Discipulate, discipuli. Now that we've seen the various elements that go into a line of dactylic hexameter, let's put them all together and see if we can scan some lines. The main thing is we know that in Latin poetry and classical poetry, meter is a pattern of long and short syllables in the line. So we need to know what's long. There are 3 syllables that fall into the category of long. If they're long by nature, those are the easy ones because your textbook has a macron, a long mark over those. So those are always going to be long. We know that if you have a vowel followed by 2 consonants, those are going to be long. There is an exception that some consonants, if they're followed by R or L, you have a choice. The vowel can be either long or short depending on what you need. But normally, followed by 2 consonants is long. And diphthongs. Diphthongs are 2 vowels that form 1 sound. Those will always be long. Now, be on the lookout. If you see 2 vowels next to each other, if the second one has a diaeresis, that's those 2 little dots over the top. That means you have 2 separate vowel sounds. That will not be a diphthong. Or if one of them has a long mark over it, that tells you the 2 vowels are pronounced separately. You will not have a diphthong in that case. Okay, so that's the long and short. Everything that does not fall into one of those 3 categories will be a short syllable. Now, by the name dactylic hexameter, we know 2 things. The hexameter tells us there are 6 feet in the line. The hex, from hex, 6 in Greek. Dactylic tells us that the basic unit we're working with, the basic foot, is the dactyl. A dactyl is a long syllable followed by 2 shorts. However, any one of those first 4 feet, we can replace the dactyl with a spondy instead. A spondy is 2 longs. Basically, in a spondy, the second long syllable takes the place of the 2 shorts in the dactyl. Because remember, long and short in classical poetry is a matter of how long it takes to say the sound. A long syllable should take twice as long as a short syllable. Just like in modern music, a whole note lasts twice as long as a half note. So we know we're going to have 6 feet, first 4 dactyls or spondies, and the last foot is always going to be a spondy, the ultimate as it's called. Even if that last syllable, it may not fall into one of those 3 categories, but we always make the last syllable long just by nature, just by virtue of being the last syllable in the line. And the penultimate, the 5th foot, is always going to be a dactyl. It'll always be long, short, short. And now before we get to looking at some actual scansion, one other thing we have to bear in mind, and that is elision. And all that means is where you have one word that ends in a vowel sound and the next word starts with a vowel, the first word loses its vowel. It loses its vowel sound, and we just kind of hook it up to the next word. And it doesn't matter whether that vowel sound on the end of the first word is long or short, it disappears. And by the way, the same rule applies to words with an ending that ends in M. All right, so now let's apply this to an actual line of poetry. Here we have a line from Book 1 of Virgil's Aeneid, Non ille imperium pelagi saevumque tridentem. And if we take a look at this, before we even start figuring out what are long syllables and short syllables, the first thing we want to do is look to see if there are any elisions, because that means we're going to be taking a syllable out of the line. It's not going to be pronounced. We're not going to hear it. And if we take a look, non ille, notice ille ends in I, imperium starts with I. So let's just cross out the I in ille, put a little loopy thing to show that ill and imperium are going to be joined to make it sound like one word. We're going to pronounce that ill imperium. Doesn't even matter that the I on the end of ille is long, it's gone. So there is that. Now, let's look at what's left. First, we want to find any long by nature. The I on the end of ille was long by nature, but we've gotten rid of that, so we don't have to worry about it anymore. But notice the O in known, long by nature, and every line must start with a long syllable anyway, because whether it's a dactyl or a spondy, the first syllable is long. So we know we're starting with a long. Pelagi, the I on the end of Pelagi is long, right? And do we have any others? That looks like that's it, right? So those are the two long by natures. We'll mark those. Now, do we have any vowels that are followed by two consonants? Again, the I in Ili, the I that's left, followed by two L's, that's long. The I in Imperium is followed by MP, that's long. On the end of Imperium, notice the U is followed by an M, and then the next word starts with P. Two consonants, that's going to be long. So go down through. Do we have any more of those? The on the end of Saiwumkwe. The on Saiwumkwe, MQ, long. And let's see, the E in Saiwumkwe, TR, that's two consonants. We'll make that long. And finally, Tridentem, the E dentem, followed by NT. And M is the last syllable. Normally it wouldn't be long, but since it's the last syllable, it's long by virtue of its position. All right, last category is diphthongs. You have the diphthongs AE, AU, OE are the most common ones. And I see one AE in Saiwumkwe. All right, so everything else is going to have to be short. So let's mark those as short. Okay, now let's see how all this fits together. We know the last foot is going to be a spondy. So we can put our little slash mark here and there's our long words, dentem. By the way, in terms of where we put that slash, normally we're going to put it, if there's a single consonant, like here, the D is the dividing line between two different feet. Normally we put it in front of the consonant, but as we're going to see in some other cases here, if it's between a stem and an ending, then it goes after the consonant, if the consonant is part of the stem. All right, but there's dentem. Now we know the second to last, the penultimate foot, has to be a dactyl. A dactyl. But we've got a problem here because we made the E on umkwe here, we made the E long because it's followed by two consonants, TR. This is that exception I was telling you about. We know this has to be a dactyl. And we may remember that an exception to the two consonant rule is that if one of those consonants, if the last one is an R or an L and it's following a consonant that's called a dental, things like D's and T's, then we can make that syllable either long or short, depending on what the meter requires. And here the meter requires a short syllable. So we're going to apply the exception. Umkwetri, that is a dactyl. Now we can go back to the beginning. And this is already marked out for us. We start with the spondy, known ill. Notice those are both long. We put a division between the two L's here, between the double consonant. Im, and then er-e, those have got to be short. Imperi, there's a dactyl. Pella, there's a dactyl. And gi, sai, there we go. And there is our line. That's it. Thank you for watching. That's all you need to know to scan the lines in Virgil's Aeneid or any other Latin poem in dactylic hexameter. Walete.